anything about Hillary in terms of religion. Now, she's been in the public eye for years and years, and yet there's nothing out there. There's like nothing out there. It's going to be an extension of Obama, but it's going to be worse, because with Obama you had your guard up. With Hillary you don't. And it's going to be worse.
Donald Trump meeting today with evangelical leaders here in New York. Those comments captured via Twitter. Of course, we weren't in that meeting. It was behind closed doors officially. We don't know what Trump said before he made those comments. What is clear, though, is that Trump seems to be painting his likely opponent, Hillary Clinton, as the wrong choice for evangelicals. That's a key demographic when you're a Republican running for president. They make up more than a third of the electorate. NBC reporting today that those evangelical leaders left that meeting feeling lukewarm about Trump, calling him a palatable alternative to Hillary Clinton, but not a champion of their faith. David Brody's the chief political correspondent at the Christian Broadcasting Network. He was in that meeting. He joins me now. David, let me just set this up. We got one recent poll here from Bloomberg. Evangelical voters, Trump versus Clinton. It's got Trump up 54-36. Not the margin you want there if you're a Republican. You're usually looking for the high 70s there if you're a Republican. So there's a problem for Trump. Did he do anything to fix it today?
He did, Steve. I think it was a pretty big moment. I was inside the room. There were two standing ovations, one when he took the stage and one when he left, which, of course, is the more important ovation. And indeed, there was a second one. And so, look, the folks I was talking, you mentioned NBC reporting lukewarm. The folks I'm talking to, and I talked to folks that were for Ted Cruz before they were ever potentially for Donald Trump. These are Ted Cruz folks, and they said, look, he marched the ball down the field a little bit today, and he moved the needle. And so they seem to be more engaged after this meeting than they were coming in. And so they saw a different side of Donald Trump, is what they're telling me. And we'll see what happens. Yes, is there work to be done? Sure. But that work got underway today, and I think it was a pretty significant day for Donald Trump.
Yeah, you say they liked what they heard. They saw a different side of him. Tell me a little bit more about that. What did they hear? What did they see?
Well, there are a lot of things that transpired. First of all, it was about an hour that he was in there, maybe close to an hour and 45 minutes or so. That's a long time for really any presidential candidate, let alone Donald Trump, in front of 900 evangelicals. And let's dial it back for a moment here. If you think about it, Donald Trump showing up in front of 900 evangelicals when this is not his bread and butter, obviously business and all of that, free trade and all of that. But when you're dealing with evangelicals, the fact that he just showed up is a victory. The fact that there were no major gaffes or gaffes at all, really, in the room today is another victory for Donald Trump. And what they heard, a lot about religious liberty. They heard about Israel. They heard about religious freedom rights, first gay rights, and he talked about how the Supreme Court is going to decide that, and that's why judges are so important. Even talked, it was interesting, Steve, I've covered him for now 9 months or so, or ever since he glided down that gold escalator, and one of the things that he's always, he really hasn't talked about at all is, remember this Coach Kennedy, that high school coach that prayed and got fired because he was praying with his team in the middle of the field? Well, Donald Trump talked about that today, saying that is just ridiculous, and he shouldn't be doing that, or that should not be happening. In addition, he talked about the Johnson Amendment, that 1954 IRS provision, basically saying that the tax-exempt status of churches and all of that, they are not allowed to endorse political candidates or any of that. He says we got to revoke that, and he talked about that. There were quite a few applause during the conversation.
You mentioned it. It's a long meeting, and we know Trump's speaking style. It could be very extemporaneous. It could be very freewheeling. There is this, and this is not with, it does not come to us with a lot of context, but it's getting a lot of attention right now. I think, the quote here we played, Donald Trump, there was a brief video that came out where he seemed to be talking about Hillary Clinton's religion, saying we don't know anything about Hillary in terms of religion. She's been in the public eye for years. There's nothing out there. There's nothing out there. We do know she's a pretty devout Methodist. She talks about it. She writes about it a lot. You were there. Can you provide a little bit more context about what he was saying?
Yeah, there really wasn't much to that at all. As a matter of fact, I'm not quite sure why that's getting the play it's getting. Maybe, you know, when you're in 140 characters or less, I guess, you know, folks will go with something along those lines. That was not any part of the focus at all in that room. It's interesting to hear that. You know, I looked down at my notes, and indeed, there were themes in that room, and especially as it relates to evangelicals and what he was telling evangelicals, saying if you don't band together, then you've got a problem because you have the power, but unless you band together, you're not going to have the power. And that was really his theme to evangelicals, that they are a force in this country, but they got to stick together. That was a big theme. This whole thing about Hillary Clinton and religion, if anything, it was just a line in the middle of an hour and 45 minutes. It really was not much to it.
All right, David Brody, thanks for the inside report. Appreciate the time.